I found an old receipt in her coat pocket while hanging it up after she'd come home late again. Just a coffee shop bill from downtown Newark. But the timestamp said 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday when she'd told me she was working a double shift until 9. My name is Robin, and I'm 31 years old. I work as a personal trainer at a gym on Broad Street, and for 4 years I'd been married to Elizabeth, who worked retail at one of those high-end fashion boutiques in the Ironbound district. We lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment near Branch Brook Park, and until that winter, I thought we had something solid. The receipt bothered me more than it should have. Not because of the coffee, Elizabeth loved her lattes, but because of the lie. Why lie about where you are if there's nothing to hide? I stood there in our narrow hallway, her wool coat still in my hands, staring at that crumpled piece of paper like it held all the answers to questions I hadn't yet formed. The coffee shop was called Brew Haven, one of those trendy places with exposed brick and overpriced pastries. We'd been there together once, maybe twice, early in our relationship when we still did spontaneous date day things. But that was years ago, back when Elizabeth would text me throughout her shifts with silly observations about difficult customers or photos of clothing displays she'd created. Back when coming home to each other felt like the best part of the day. I carefully folded the receipt and slipped it into my wallet, though I couldn't have explained why. Evidence? Of what? A coffee purchase? I felt ridiculous and paranoid, but something in my gut twisted uncomfortably. That night, I made pasta carbonara, her favorite, and she barely touched it, pushed the noodles around her plate while scrolling through her phone, occasionally laughing at something on the screen, but not sharing what it was. We used to show each other funny videos, used to narrate our social media feeds out loud, like we were providing commentary for a shared life. How was work? I asked, trying to sound casual. Exhausting, she said without looking up. We had this huge shipment come in, and had to reorganize the entire back room. I'm dead tired. The lie came so easily to her. So smoothly. Like she'd practiced it. That sounds rough, I said, watching her face for any crack in the facade. Did you get a chance to eat lunch? Grab something quick at my desk, she said, finally meeting my eyes. Why? No reason. Just wanted to make sure you took care of yourself. She smiled then, but it didn't reach her eyes. You're sweet. I'm lucky to have you. The words should have warmed me. Instead, they felt like stones dropping into my stomach. Then I started noticing other things. Small things that individually meant nothing, but together formed a pattern I couldn't ignore. She bought new perfume. Expensive stuff, the kind she'd never worn before, something called Midnight Orchid, that came in a sleek black bottle and probably cost more than our weekly grocery budget. Started wearing makeup to work when she used to roll out of bed and go, maybe swipe on some mascara if she felt ambitious. Now she was up an hour earlier, carefully applying foundation, contouring her cheekbones, selecting outfits with the kind of attention she used to reserve for special occasions. She'd come home and immediately shower, even on days when retail work wouldn't make you sweat. She'd drop her purse by the door, kick off her shoes, and head straight to the bathroom without so much as a hello. I'd hear the water running for 20, 30 minutes, and when she emerged, her skin would be flushed pink and she'd be wearing fresh clothes, her work outfit already stuffed in the hamper. Long day? I'd ask. You have no idea, she'd reply, toweling her hair. Her phone became an extension of her hand, always face down on every surface, always password protected, always just out of reach. She'd changed her lock screen from a photo of us at the beach to some generic geometric pattern. When notifications lit up the screen, she'd snatch the phone away before I could glimpse even a name. We used to have each other's passcodes. We used to leave our phones lying around like they were just tools, not vaults of secrets. Now, if I so much as glanced in the direction of her phone, she'd tense up, her body language screaming defensiveness. Who keeps texting you? I asked once when her phone buzzed 6 times in 2 minutes during dinner. Just the work group chat, she said, silencing it without checking. They're always going off about something. But I'd seen the work group chat before. It was mostly Valentine complaining about their manager and someone named Bethany sharing memes. It didn't buzz with that kind of frequency, didn't warrant the small smile that flickered across Elizabeth's face before she suppressed it. When I asked about her day, her answers got vague. Fine. Busy. You know how it is. But I didn't know how it was because she'd stopped telling me. There used to be stories. There used to be details. She'd come home and tell me about the woman who tried on 14 dresses before buying nothing, or the teenager whose mother wouldn't let her wear anything above the knee, or the elderly man shopping for his wife's birthday, who needed help with sizes and colors, and ended up buying half the store. Now there was just silence. Just Elizabeth moving through our apartment like a ghost, present but not really there. I tried to bridge the gap. I really did. I'd suggest movies we could watch together, restaurants we could try, weekend trips we could take. She'd agree with a non-committal maybe that never turned into yes. She was always too tired, too busy, too something. Our sex life, which had never been explosively passionate, but had been comfortable and regular, had dwindled to nothing. It had been almost 2 months since she'd touched me with any kind of desire. When I tried to initiate, she'd claim exhaustion or headaches or early morning shifts. She'd kiss my cheek like I was a brother, not a husband. I'd lie awake next to her, listening to her breathe, wondering when exactly I'd lost her. Wondering if there was a specific moment, a conversation, a failure on my part, something I'd said or didn't say, that had started this slow erosion. Or wondering if maybe she'd just gotten bored. If maybe 4 years of marriage to a gym trainer who smelled like sweat and protein powder had worn down whatever attraction she'd once felt. The real breaking point came on a Friday in late January. Newark had been hit with one of those brutal cold snaps where stepping outside felt like getting slapped, and I'd left work early because 3 clients had canceled. Nobody wanted to work out when the wind chill was below zero. The gym was practically empty, so my boss told me to head home. I came home around 4 in the afternoon, expecting an empty apartment. Elizabeth's shift didn't end until 7, and she'd mentioned something about staying late to help with inventory. But Elizabeth's coat was on the chair. Her boots were by the door, snow still melting into small puddles on the mat. And I could hear her voice coming from our bedroom, low and intimate in a way she hadn't spoken to me in months. I froze in the entryway, gym bag still on my shoulder, barely breathing. I know. Her voice was soft, almost melodic, punctuated by pauses as she listened to whoever was on the other end. No, he doesn't suspect anything. Patrick, I told you, he's completely clueless. Yes, tonight. I'll tell him I'm going out with Valentine from work. I love you too. The words hung in the air like smoke after a fire. Each syllable burned itself into my memory with perfect clarity. Patrick, completely clueless. I love you too. I stood in the hallway, gym bag still on my shoulder, listening to my wife plan her evening around another man. My legs felt disconnected from my body. My hands went numb. There was a ringing in my ears that had nothing to do with sound and everything to do with the complete collapse of reality as I'd understood it. I didn't burst in, didn't confront her. Every muscle in my body screamed to kick down that door, to demand answers, to make her look me in the eyes and explain how we'd gotten here. But something else took over, something calculating and cold that I didn't recognize as part of myself. Instead, I quietly backed toward the door, stepping carefully to avoid the creaky floorboard near the kitchen. I slipped back out into the hallway, descended 4 flights of stairs on shaking legs, and walked to the parking lot where my car sat covered in a thin layer of ice. I sat in the driver's seat while my hands shook on the steering wheel, the engine running but the car going nowhere, watching my breath fog up the windshield. Patrick. The name rattled around in my head like a marble in an empty jar. I knew a Patrick. He'd joined the gym about 3 months ago, always came in around the same time Elizabeth got off her shifts. Tall guy, worked in finance, drove a BMW he parked like it owned the spot, and everyone else was just borrowing space. Well dressed in that expensive casual way, where a simple t-shirt probably cost more than my entire outfit. He'd mentioned once that his girlfriend worked in retail. I'd been spotting him on bench press, making small talk to pass the time, and he'd said something about how she was always busy with work, how he never knew what to buy her because she had such specific taste. I'd laughed and said my wife was the same way, that retail workers were their own toughest customers. He'd smiled at that. Maybe they know each other. Small world, right? Smaller than I'd thought. That night, Elizabeth came out of the bedroom all dolled up, hair perfectly styled in loose waves, wearing a dress I'd never seen before, deep emerald green, fitted, expensive looking. She'd done her makeup with that careful precision that takes time and practice, smoky eyes and dark lips that made her look like she was heading to a gala, not drinks with co-workers. She kissed my cheek, actually kissed my cheek, left a lipstick print I could feel cooling on my skin, and told me she was meeting Valentine and some other girls from work for drinks. Don't wait up, she said, grabbing her coat and checking her reflection one final time in the hallway mirror. You know how these things go. We'll probably close down the bar. She laughed, light and careless, and I managed to smile back like my entire world hadn't just imploded. Have fun, I said. Be safe. Always am. She blew me a kiss from the doorway and was gone. I sat on the couch in silence for exactly 60 seconds after the door closed, counting each one in my head before I moved. I waited exactly 1 hour after she left, watching the clock tick forward with agonizing slowness, before I pulled out my phone and called Valentine. We'd met a few times at work events, a holiday party last year, a summer barbecue the boutique had thrown for employees and their families. She seemed nice enough, the kind of person who'd tell you the truth if you asked directly. The phone rang 4 times before she picked up. I could hear a TV in the background, some crime drama with dramatic music. Hello. Valentine, hey, it's Robin, Elizabeth's husband. Quick question, are you guys out tonight? There was a pause. A long one. The TV sound muted. Out? No, I'm home watching Netflix. Is everything okay? The concern in her voice was genuine, which somehow made it worse. She had no idea she was supposed to be Elizabeth's alibi. She had no idea she was part of this at all. Yeah, I lied, forcing my voice to stay steady. Just got my wires crossed. Thanks. Are you sure everything's? I hung up before she could finish the question, before the sympathy in her tone could crack whatever composure I was holding on to. So now I knew for certain. Not just suspected, not just worried, knew. Elizabeth wasn't out with co-workers. She was with Patrick. She'd gotten dressed up for him, kissed my cheek and lied to my face, and walked out the door to spend the evening with someone else. I sat there in our apartment, surrounded by the life we'd built together, the couch we'd picked out at a furniture outlet, the coffee table we'd assembled while drunk on cheap wine and laughing at the incomprehensible instructions, the framed photos of our wedding day scattered on shelves, and felt like a stranger in my own home. Over the next 2 weeks, I became someone I didn't recognize. I tracked her location through our shared phone plan, something I'd never even thought to do before, something that felt invasive and wrong but necessary. Our cellular provider had a family tracking feature we'd enabled years ago for practical reasons, so we'd know if the other person was stuck in traffic or running late, and now I used it to watch the blue dot that represented my wife move around Newark. The pattern was depressingly consistent. She'd leave work at 7, but instead of the dot moving toward home, it would head north into the North Ward, stopping at an address on Mount Prospect Avenue for 3, sometimes 4 hours. Then she'd head home, arriving around 11 with stories about inventory counts or difficult customers or after-work drinks that never happened. I drove past Patrick's apartment building once. Just once. It was a nice place, newer construction with a doorman and underground parking, the kind of building that charged triple what we paid for half the space because of the amenities and the location. His apartment was on the 3rd floor, corner unit, and I could see into the living room from the street. I saw them through his window. Saw her laugh and touch his arm in ways she hadn't touched mine in months. Saw him pull her close, saw her tilt her face up toward his, saw the kiss that confirmed everything I already knew. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, watching strangers walk past with their dogs and their groceries and their uncomplicated lives, before I drove home. I documented everything. Took photos with timestamps showing her car parked outside his building. Screenshots of her location data, showing the hours spent at his address. Saved text messages she'd carelessly left open on her laptop. Conversations with someone named Emma, who I was pretty sure didn't exist, talking about meeting up for yoga classes and coffee dates that never included any specific details or locations. I built a file that would have made any lawyer happy, organized and thorough and damning. But here's what destroyed me more than the affair itself. I found her journal. She'd left it in her nightstand, tucked beneath a stack of magazines and a half-empty box of tissues. I'd been looking for phone charger. Mine had stopped working and I thought she might have a spare. And there it was. A simple leather-bound notebook, the kind you'd buy at any bookstore, nothing fancy or special about it. I knew I shouldn't read it. Knew it was a violation of privacy, knew it crossed a line. I read it anyway. The entries from the past 6 months were brutal in their honesty, written in Elizabeth's careful handwriting with occasional words underlined for emphasis. November 3rd. Patrick makes me feel alive again. He takes me to nice restaurants, buys me things, makes me feel like I'm worth something. Robin is a good man, but he'll never be more than a gym trainer making $45,000 a year. I deserve better than this apartment, better than budgeting every purchase, better than a husband who smells like sweat and protein powder. My friends all married men with real careers, tech, finance, medicine, and here I am clipping coupons and shopping at Target. This isn't the life I planned. November 18th. I do love Robin. I think I do. But I'm not in love with him anymore. Patrick offers me the life I was supposed to have. The life my friends have with their husbands who work in tech and finance and travel for business. Why should I settle? Why should I be the only one in my friend group who has to worry about money, who can't go on the girls' trips to Miami or the Bahamas because I can't afford it? It's not fair. December 2nd. I know I should leave Robin, but I can't afford this apartment on my own, and Patrick isn't ready to commit yet. He's still legally married, even though he says it's over, even though he's filing for divorce. I'm stuck until I figure out the money situation. It's not fair to any of us, but neither is marrying someone who can't provide the life you want. December 29th. Robin gave me a necklace for Christmas. It's pretty, but it's not the bracelet Patrick gave me, which is platinum and has real diamonds. That's the difference. Robin tries, but trying isn't the same as succeeding. I feel guilty for thinking this way, but I can't help how I feel. I'm 30 years old, and I want more than trying. I want someone who actually delivers. January 10th. Patrick says he loves me. He says once his divorce is final, we can be together for real. I believe him. I have to believe him, because otherwise what am I doing? What have I thrown away? Robin deserves better than this, better than me, but I can't bring myself to leave him yet. Not until I know Patrick and I have a real future. The words carved themselves into my memory. Not just that she was cheating, but that she was using me, keeping me around as a safety net while she test drove a better option, waiting to see if Patrick would commit before she bothered to leave me. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was her backup plan. I closed the journal and put it back exactly where I'd found it, my hands steady despite the rage burning through my chest. That's when I stopped being sad and started getting strategic. I went to see my parents in Edison the next day, just a 40-minute drive up the turnpike, familiar and easy even in winter traffic. My dad, Larry, had been a union electrician for 30 years before retiring. My mom, Ursula, had worked as a school administrator. They were practical people who'd taught me that actions mattered more than words, that you solve problems by dealing with them directly, not by complaining or hoping they'd resolve themselves. They lived in the same modest house they'd bought when I was 2 years old, a 3-bedroom ranch with a big backyard and a basement my dad had converted into a workshop. I'd grown up in that house, learned to ride my bike in that driveway, had my first kiss on that front porch. It was the kind of home that represented stability and honesty, and all the things my marriage apparently wasn't. "You look terrible," my mother said the moment she opened the door, pulling me into a hug before I could protest. "What's wrong?" I told them everything over coffee in their kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd done homework at the table, where we'd eaten Sunday dinners for decades, where every important conversation of my life had somehow ended up happening. I showed them the photos, the location data, the journal entries I'd photographed with my phone. My mother's face went through several expressions: shock, anger, disappointment, and finally a hard determination I recognized from my childhood when someone at school had wronged me. My father just nodded slowly, his jaw tight. "What do you need from us?" "I need to protect my money," I said. "Can you hold on to something for me?" I'd spent 4 years building up a savings account. Not much by most standards, maybe $23,000, but it was mine, earned from early morning training sessions that started at 5 a.m. and weekend boot camps in the park and the occasional private client who paid premium rates. Our apartment lease was in both names, but I'd paid the security deposit. Our furniture was mostly hand-me-downs from family and thrift store finds, nothing valuable enough to fight over. The money was the only thing that mattered, the only thing I'd built that was truly mine. New Jersey law said marital assets got divided equitably in a divorce, which didn't necessarily mean 50-50, but could mean whatever a judge decided was fair. If Elizabeth got a good lawyer, if she claimed she'd sacrificed her own career advancement to support mine, if she played the victim card effectively, she could walk away with half or more of my savings. I couldn't let that happen. Not when she'd spent months planning to leave me anyway, not when she'd only stayed because I was financially convenient. "I'm going to withdraw the savings in cash," I explained. "Small amounts over several days so it doesn't trigger any alerts at the bank. I need you to hold on to it for me until the divorce is final." My father nodded slowly. "Smart. Your grandfather lost everything in his divorce because he didn't think ahead. He trusted the system to be fair, and it wasn't. Don't make his mistakes." "Is this legal?" my mother asked, ever the cautious one. "It's my money," I said. "Earned before and during the marriage, but from my work in an account in my name. I'm not hiding shared assets or money she contributed to. I'm protecting what I built so she can't claim half of it while she's running around with her boyfriend. And if a judge asks where it went, I'll say I spent it. She'll have no way to prove otherwise. My mother studied me for a long moment, then reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I'm sorry this is happening to you. You deserved better than her. I know, I said, and realized I meant it. Over the next week, I withdrew the entire savings in increments. $3,000 on Monday, $4,000 on Wednesday, $5,000 on Friday. The bank tellers barely blinked. Cash withdrawals weren't that unusual, and I had every right to access my own money. I brought it to my parents in a canvas duffel bag, rubber-banded stacks of bills that represented for years of sacrifice and discipline and work. My mother counted it all twice, made a detailed written record of the amount and date, and locked it in the safe my father kept in his workshop. Thank you, I said. That's what family does, my dad replied. We protect each other. Next, I talked to Paul, one of my oldest friends from high school who'd gone to law school and now worked in family law at a firm in Jersey City. We'd stayed close over the years, grabbing beers every few months, texting about sports and life and nothing important. Now I needed him for something very important. We met at a diner off Route 1, one of those 24-hour places with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that tasted like it had been brewing since the 90s. I ordered eggs I didn't eat while Paul listened to everything I had to tell him. Do you have proof? He asked, pulling out a legal pad and taking notes. I showed him my phone, photos, screenshots, everything I'd collected. He whistled low. New Jersey is a no-fault divorce state, so adultery won't affect the divorce itself. You don't need grounds, you just need to prove the marriage is irretrievably broken, which this certainly qualifies as. But infidelity will absolutely help with equitable distribution of assets. The fact that she's financially planning to leave while still benefiting from your income? That's bad faith. A judge won't like that at all. What do I do? File first. Get ahead of this. The person who files has a psychological advantage. They control the narrative, they set the tone. And whatever you do, don't let her know you're planning anything until the papers are served. Don't give her time to prepare, to hide things, to get her own lawyer and start strategizing. How long will it take? In New Jersey? If it's uncontested, if she doesn't fight you on the terms, you could be divorced in 6 months. If she contests it, if there are disputes over assets or support, it could take a year or more. But given what you've shown me, given the evidence of her affair and her admitted plan to leave, I think we can push for a quick resolution. Paul agreed to handle my case personally, gave me a friends and family discount that still made me wince, but was better than standard rates. We started the paperwork that day. So I played the role of oblivious husband. Came home, made dinner, asked about her day, watched her lie to my face with a smile. It was the hardest performance of my life. How was work? I'd ask, knowing she hadn't been at work. Exhausting, she'd say, scrolling through her phone. We're so understaffed right now. That's rough, I'd reply while inside I screamed. Meanwhile, I quietly found a new apartment, a studio in Harrison, just across the Passaic River, maybe a 15-minute drive from my gym. Small, affordable mine. The building was nothing special, a converted warehouse with concrete floors and exposed pipes, but it had good natural light and cost $800 a month. I could afford it on my own. That was the important part. I signed the lease to start March 1st, paid the deposit with cash I'd saved separately, and felt the first spark of hope I'd experienced in weeks. I moved things gradually. A box of books here, some clothes there, personal items she'd never notice missing. Nothing obvious, nothing that would tip her off. By mid-February, I had most of my important possessions already relocated. Photo albums from before I met her, my good winter coat, my laptop, the watch my grandfather had given me. Then came Valentine's Day. Elizabeth made a big show of it, bought me a card with some generic message about love and partnership printed in flowing script. To my husband, my best friend, my everything. She'd signed it with a heart and her name, nothing personal, nothing real. We went to dinner at a Portuguese restaurant in the Ironbound, a place we'd been to a few times before, and she held my hand across the table, played the devoted wife for 2 hours. She ordered the seafood stew she always got, laughed at my jokes, asked about my clients at the gym like she actually cared. To anyone watching, we looked like a happy couple celebrating a romantic holiday. Her phone buzzed constantly in her purse. I knew exactly who it was. I watched her eyes flick toward it every few minutes, watched her fingers twitch with the urge to check it, watched her exercise restraint because she was still playing her role too. "Want to check that?" I asked at one point, keeping my voice light. "It's fine," she said, squeezing my hand. "Tonight is about us." The lies had become so automatic, she probably didn't even register them as lies anymore. That night, she told me she was exhausted and went to bed early. I heard her texting under the covers for an hour before she fell asleep, the glow of her phone screen visible through the blanket, soft typing sounds in the darkness. I sat in the living room with divorce papers in my lap, ready to be filed, and made my final decision. There would be no dramatic confrontation, no screaming match, no throwing her clothes out a window or keying her car, or any of the revenge fantasies I'd entertained in my darker moments. I would do this cleanly, efficiently, and permanently. Tomorrow, everything would change. The next morning was a Saturday. Elizabeth slept late, like always, her body a still mound under the comforter while winter light filtered through the bedroom blinds. I was up at 6, went for a run around Branch Brook Park even though the wind chill was in the teens, and my lungs burned with every breath of frozen air. I ran harder than I needed to, faster than was smart, pushing my body until my legs ached, and my thoughts quieted into the simple rhythm of footfalls on frozen pavement. By the time I got back to the apartment, I'd run 7 miles and made peace with what came next. When I got back, I made coffee and waited. The smell filled the apartment, dark roast, strong, the same kind I made every morning. Normal. Routine. The last normal morning of our marriage. She emerged around 9, sleepy and soft in an oversized t-shirt and flannel pajama pants, her hair messy from sleep. She yawned and stretched, smiled at me like nothing was wrong, like our life wasn't a carefully constructed lie. "Morning," she said, padding to the kitchen and pouring herself coffee. "Did you run? It's freezing out." "Morning. We need to talk." Something in my tone made her freeze. The coffee mug stopped halfway to her lips. Her eyes sharpened, lost their sleepy haze, became alert and wary. "About what?" I pulled out my phone and set it on the kitchen table, photos already queued up. Her car outside Patrick's building, timestamp visible in the corner. Her location data showing hours spent at his address. Screenshots of text messages to fake friends covering fake plans. The color drained from her face. Actually drained, like someone had pulled a plug and let all the blood run out. She set the coffee mug down carefully, her hand shaking slightly. "I know about Patrick," I said quietly, keeping my voice level and calm. "I've known for weeks." She started to speak, but I held up my hand. "I don't want to hear excuses or explanations. I read your journal, Elizabeth. I know you think I'm beneath you. I know you've been planning to leave, but couldn't afford to. I know you don't love me, at least not the way a wife should love her husband. I know I'm just your backup plan until Patrick commits to leaving his wife." Tears started rolling down her face, but they felt performative, calculated. Like she was trying to figure out which emotional response would work best, which version of sadness or regret would get her out of this. "Robin, please let me explain." "There's nothing to explain. I'm filing for divorce. The papers will be served to you next week. I've already found a new place. I'm moving out today." "Today?" Her voice cracked, went high and thin. "You can't just leave." "Yes, I can. And I am. But the apartment, the bills, I can't afford. That's not my problem anymore." The reality of what was happening seemed to hit her all at once. The tears came harder now, messy and real, her face crumpling. "Wait, Robin, please. I made a mistake. I'll end things with Patrick. We can work through this. We can go to counseling. Please don't throw away 4 years over one mistake." "One mistake?" I stood up, grabbing my coffee mug, needing something to do with my hands to keep from shaking. "Elizabeth, you've been sleeping with him for months. You've been lying to me every single day. You literally wrote in your journal that you're only staying with me until you figure out your finances. That's not a mistake, that's a choice. A long series of choices." She followed me to the bedroom, where I'd already packed my final bags. 2 duffel bags and a suitcase, everything I needed to start over sitting by the closet door. "I do love you," she insisted, grabbing at my arm. "I know I wrote those things, but I was confused. I was stupid. Patrick doesn't mean anything. Then why are you still with him?" She had no answer for that, just stared at me with red eyes and running mascara, her mouth opening and closing like she was searching for words that didn't exist. I carried my bags to the door. She followed, desperate now, her voice rising toward panic. "If you leave, I'll lose everything. The apartment, my life here. I'll have nowhere to go. You should have thought about that before you decided I wasn't good enough for you. That's not fair, she shouted. You're being cruel. I'm being cruel? I turned to look at her, really look at her, and saw a stranger. You've been lying to me for months. You've been sleeping with another man while I worked extra hours to save money for our future. You wrote in your journal that I smell like sweat and protein powder, that you deserve better than me, that I'll never be more than a gym trainer. And I'm the one being cruel? She opened her mouth, then closed it again. I gave you 4 years of loyalty and love, I said softly. You gave me lies and contempt. We're done. I walked out. The door clicked shut behind me, final and absolute. I heard her start sobbing on the other side, heard something crash. Maybe she threw her coffee mug, maybe she kicked the wall, but I didn't go back. I stood in the hallway for a moment, bags in hand, listening to my wife fall apart in an apartment that was no longer our home. Then I walked away. The legal process moved faster than I expected, smoothed by Paul's expertise and Elizabeth's lack of preparation. She'd been so confident I'd never leave, so certain I'd stay because I loved her, or because I was too passive or too scared or too whatever, that she hadn't bothered to protect herself legally. By the time she hired a lawyer, some fresh out of law school kid who worked for a strip mall firm, I'd already established the narrative. I was the faithful spouse who discovered an ongoing affair. I had documented evidence. I had witnesses who could testify to her lies about her whereabouts. Since we had no kids, no shared property beyond basic furniture that neither of us particularly cared about, and I had documented proof of her affair and financial planning, the judge sided heavily in my favor during the preliminary hearings. The apartment lease was in both our names, but I'd paid the security deposit and could prove through bank statements that I'd covered 70% of the rent over 4 years, while Elizabeth had spent most of her income on clothes, beauty treatments, and social outings. The judge gave me the option to assume the lease solo or break it without penalty. I chose to break it. Let Elizabeth figure out what to do. Let her deal with landlords and deposits and explaining why her husband was leaving. I was done making her life easier. Our joint bank account had already been drained by me weeks earlier, the slow withdrawals that added up to nothing by the time she thought to check. When her lawyer demanded an accounting of marital assets, I explained that I'd spent the money. On what? Living expenses, gifts for Elizabeth, dinners out, saving up for a vacation we never took. Could I provide receipts? Unfortunately, no. Did I have any remaining savings? Unfortunately, also no. Her lawyer looked skeptical, but couldn't prove otherwise. The money was gone, and that was that. The furniture got divided in an afternoon. She took the bedroom set her parents had given us. I took the couch and kitchen table. Everything else, the lamps, the decorations, the wedding gifts, we split or donated. Neither of us wanted reminders. What shocked everyone was what happened 2 days after the divorce was finalized in late March. Patrick broke up with Elizabeth. I found out through Valentine, who called me one evening. Patrick dumped her. Apparently, he was never planning to actually be with her long term. He just wanted someone available while his divorce played out. I'm not surprised, I said. She's devastated, asking if she can crash with people from work. I told her no. Elizabeth tried reaching out to me multiple times over the following weeks. Phone calls, texts, even showing up at my gym once. Each time, I kept it brief and cold. Please, Robin, she said during her gym appearance. I made a horrible mistake. Can we just talk? We have nothing to talk about. You made your choice. I chose wrong. Patrick wasn't who I thought he was. Past tense. I did love you. I don't anymore. How can you just turn it off? I didn't turn it off. You killed it, with every lie and every moment you spent with him. Security escorted her out. April arrived with cherry blossoms in Branch Brook Park. I settled into my studio in Harrison, picked up extra clients, rebuilt my life. My parents gave me back my savings, and I used part of it for better training equipment. By May, Patrick lost his job due to inappropriate relationships with clients and his own messy divorce. Elizabeth moved back with her parents in Princeton. Summer came. I got promoted to head trainer. Moved to a nicer apartment in Kearney. Started dating again. Life moved forward. One Saturday in July, I was at Branch Brook Park with my dad when I saw her. Elizabeth sat alone on a bench, watching families pass by. She looked the same but hollow somehow. Our eyes met across the park. I looked away and threw the football back to my dad. Some stories don't end with closure or resolution. Some stories just end. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.